Lori Hart.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you. How's the family?
Everybody's good.
Okay.
Everybody's good. I got 6 grandbabies now.
Oh my goodness. I don't have any, so send me a couple of them.
Okay. Oh me.
How's Mr. Charles these days?
Easy as ever. Just keep on working.
Hey, I've got a niece, Julie, one of our agents. She's, I figure what this is doing. They moved
No,
up in Cleveland,
yeah.
and one of her daughters just graduated high school up there, but she's going to vet school, and so she's been working for the girl that while you were gone, I showed them that house or whatever up there. That's the little vet. You remember?
Yep.
So she's been working for her, so she knew her pretty well. So
That's awesome. She needs to come hang out with Charles.
yeah.
Have to set it up.
Say what?
She'll have to come work with Charles. We'll have
Yeah.
to set it up.
I need to tell her. So I think
Yeah.
she's going to. Hello. Hey, I think she's going to Wallace State for her first 2 years, and then going down
Yep.
to. So.
Yeah, you have to, if I recall, you have to have like 500 hours working at a vet's office before you can even think about applying. A lot of hours.
Yeah. Like I said, she's been working in that office up there with that little girl. I guess she started her own practice up there. So anyway, I don't know.
Okay.
So I'll let you know. Miss Diana,
Okay.
how are you guys doing? It's my late people selling houses.
Hey, Randy.
Good to see you
Eddie
guys.
had a massive heart attack last week.
I'm sorry, what?
My daddy, David Howell, had a massive heart attack. No, massive stroke last Thursday.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry.
And he's on hospice, and so he might make it another day or two. So I thought
Okay.
you might know. I know he was a lot of you as an agent.
Oh, yeah, we'll put them on our prayer list, so hope everything works out good. So, Ms. Clark, I'm gonna give a few minutes, but we've got a lot to cover, and appreciate everybody coming by. Miss Wagner's on here, Sonia, Nancy, Jan, man, good crowd. So, anyway, interesting times. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get moving with some stuff. I need to figure out. Let me get things set up.
Hey, Chris, what's the story with the cookies out there, bro?
Share screen.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, yeah, probably will not. My name's Bennett and I ain't in it. That's it. You ready?
Yeah. I'm going to introduce Levon. Levon's going to teach today's lesson, go over everything with us. So, Levon, if you want to come on up. All right. Let me find my files in here. Yeah, bump it way down. It's warm in here. Hope y'all have your air conditioner on and feeling comfortable. And
Yeah, because at first they did the listing, then they did the buyers, and then the last one they did was the actual agreement, the purchase agreement. I said, well, okay. Then I learned that every MLS was gonna do their forms a little different.
okay. So all the interest that we've been hearing for the last couple of years of the lawsuit is kind of really getting settled down, and so we can figure what we're going to do from this point on. And I would like to say from this point on, it may be for today. And, so to kind of back up, some lawsuits have been, our industry has done so well over the last 3 or 4 years. We all just kind of had people calling us and selling it like hotcakes. And then the last year or so has slowed down a little bit. But what has happened, get her a chair over here, is apparently during those times of just really being crazy busy, somebody let their guards down. A lot of people let their guards down as licensed real estate agents. And so the big lawsuit came up from sellers finding out that they're paying the buyer's agent, and which we sit there thinking, so. But if you weren't disclosed or clearly disclosed that, hey, we're paying the buyer's agent and all this other stuff, then it opens up for lawsuits, which came across, and I was really shocked at all the settlements, because what I kept hearing is that it's going to be appealed. There's certain things that were not allowed in the court. And certain things that were, but everybody was talking that the big companies were going to appeal all this, NAR was going to appeal it. But there came a point to where this thing was growing so fast, and what NAR says is to protect us. They did the settlement, and so of course their settlement included companies selling less than, what was it, $2 billion. And then those companies had to go settle their own, and so there's a ton of settlements out of this thing, but NAR represented us because we're under a certain level. Thank goodness they settled this with our money, and so NAR makes their money from collecting our annual fees and stuff like that. So it's our money. They didn't really pass on anything of what really happened, try to explain, but I guess that's just normal. In large situation like this. But a lot of the larger companies have settled. Pretty much everyone has settled. There's only 1 or 2 that have not. And so the settlement's just part of the whole process, and hopefully it's getting closed. The issue of, we've been hearing, hey, what's next, what next? And we've been hearing, hey, why don't y'all tell us what's going on? I'm like, oh, nobody knows. I mean, really until last week, the Birmingham Association of Realtors adopted their documents and made it official, and was going to pass it out yesterday, and they came out early last week. And what we're seeing at the beach and in Huntsville, those MLSs are having a required training. So they're, as a MLS, is bringing everybody in and training, to where Birmingham is leaving it up to the individual companies, which is what we're going to do today, and then do some next week. Just kind of go over some things. And so with the issues of the settlement and the documents coming out, so these documents are part of the settlement, that there's money being given. But NAR came out and said, okay, we're going to pay, but we're also going to change the structure of how we do things. And so these documents that we're getting down to are part of the settlements. And the settlement's not just with sellers and lawyers, but it's Department of Justice got involved. And so Department of Justice really came out and fought hard that buyer's agents should not be paid from sellers at the closing table from any proceeds from there. That was their number one goal, was to do away with that. So if you represent a buyer, we've always gotten paid. But they finally came back and said, okay, we're good with these documents at this point. What we're seeing with state by state, association by association, I read up where in the California Association of Realtors, the DOJ's gone back and filed another suit against them and making them change some documents. And so, I'm just like, all right, when are they going to come after us and try to change a few things? But overall, the Alabama associations and the documents that we have used have been the right forms. If we do a listing agreement, it says you're going to pay me 5%. So the blank is the biggest thing, because a lot of companies are sitting there putting 6, mandating if you work for me, you've got to charge 6%, all this other stuff. Well, that's a violation. Department of Justice, if they see that again, they're gonna pop you. And so as companies out here, and so not only do we have NAR and association, delegation, all these other people kind of watching over us and trying to define us and all that. And I had a conversation yesterday that I was on the governance committee for several years, and I had asked the question to the association. I said, are we broke? And they're like, why? I said, because all you're trying to do is find a reason to find agents. And so, but they still, in those meetings, it's just, hey, how can we find agents for doing stuff wrong? And I'm like, okay, that's not what our association should be doing. They should be training us and helping us. And if there's issues, they see we're doing, and so then they should correct us a little bit, which I think now they have time to do it, because everybody, again, a few years back, everybody's been covered up. And so, what we're going to sit here and look at, there are, and I kind of spoke on this once before, is at closings, there's always another addendum, which represents lawsuits. And so what we're going over with some of the documents, there's changes, but there's also addendums, and, to make sure that people know. And most of this, I would almost say 99.9% of this is disclosure. We've got to do our job. And so if you're listing a home, you've got to point it out that, hey, you're paying me commission. Do you give me a permission? Now we've got to get permission to share that, and how much can we share? And then as a buyer's agent, as of yesterday, you can't look on the MLS and see what are they paying. And so now we've got to communicate. We got to call, hey, are y'all paying? I get that call. I've been getting that call for a month now. What are you paying them? Well, it's in the MLS. And so they're like, but we're not supposed to do that. I'm like, yeah, we're still good, and so, but the MLS, I think as of yesterday, took everything off. So no more compensation. That doesn't mean buyer's agents are not going to get paid from the deal. We've got documents that we've got to get signed up front. One of the biggest things that's different is You know, and I told some guys at a meeting the other day, that I was at with some NAR people. And I'm like, I really think anybody who in here or online bought Zillow leads in the last 5 years or got any leads. We were doing it big time. And what Zillow, our issue was when people would call us, they want to go see a house. And I'm like, okay, you got to get with our lender. Let's get you pre-approved. And we've got to recadge and disclose all this other stuff. Well, people will hang up on you and they're calling somebody else. So Zillow and other lead generators were saying, no, you get that call, go meet them, show them the house, introduce yourself, sell your services to them, which we did. And our team was guilty of, boom, we're just running out, meeting people. And you find out when you get there that they don't know who you are. They think you're either the listing agent or somebody from Zillow. And when you tell them, no, I spend money on Zillow, they send you, send me your information. So my job's here to represent you. And then they're like, well, I've already got an attorney, or, hey, I've got an aunt that I'm gonna call. And so the whole problem here is with the leads and the systems that was going on was there was no disclosure. Nobody knew who's in control, who's the listing agents and who's the buyer's agents or anything else. And so that's where the chaotic issues came in. Lawsuits started getting popped in because we were no longer being professional real estate agents. We were just running out, delivering, letting people in houses that we didn't know, just hoping that we would be able to get a contract from them. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if there's any numbers on this, but I'm like, how many robbers did we open a door and let them walk in a house and see the inside? You don't know them, you don't know that they're pre-approved, and so that's what happened. What we're getting back to, it's almost like, hey, these documents are really nothing new. There's a few sentences in each one of them. We're getting back to, we've got to do our job. We got to be professionals. I can't see if Ron's on here, but Ron the other day was talking to me. They moved to the lake. He's bought a boat, and he's like, hey, I was going to charge my boat off, taking people around the lake. He said, but I can't, because unless I sign them up, they're not my clients anymore. And I said, well, there's two different rules between IRS and, in what we're doing. But also, he sells computer systems. And I said, Ron, how many of your clients are out there using y'all's computer system that you're not under contract with? He's like, none. And so that's the difference is we're that system. We're the professionals. Our job is to get back to proving what our value is. And that's all the DOJ wants at this point. They're not upset that we're getting paid commissions. Now, I will say this, part of the DOJ is they think it's crazy how much we get paid on a closing, think that we don't deserve it, but that's where they're wrong. And so I think that's where the trade of time has gone over and saying, hey, professional real estate agents earn their money, every dime of it. Working a deal right now that, hey, man, the buyer's agent's having to cut commissions and everything to make the deal work. And I'm like, okay, you've got to be able to make more on one deal so that you can cut on some deals and negotiate through all of this thing to make it all work out. And so we can still do all of that. But again, it's just all about disclosing. No longer can you get a friend call you and say, hey, I'm looking for a house. The market that we're in right now is people call, hey, we're looking. All right, whenever you find one, call me and I'll get you in it. It's not our job. Our job is to sit down, let's meet, let me find out what you're looking for. Do you want 2 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, what schools, all this other stuff? We've gotten into a service industry of just opening doors, being door greeters and putting paperwork together. And that's not our job. Our job goes back to meeting, figuring out what people want, and using our services as a buyer's agent, not only to find them a house, but to know the market, know how to negotiate, and not just negotiate on a price, but negotiate on inspections, closing costs, everything else, so that we can say, hey, I'm worth it because I'm going to get you a better deal. I'm going to make sure, you get everything that I feel like you can get. And so now we've got a lot of agents like, well, I'm worried I'm not going to get my commission. And I'm like, well, if you do it right, you're going to get paid every dime you've ever made and probably even more, because there's a lot of agents that's not going to step in and do this because they think, hey, it's change. I don't like change. But I want to tell you, it's worth it, because you're going to come out of this, you learn these documents, publish some things, be an educator to the public out there of what our new roles are and what your role is as a real estate agent. And just, I'm sitting there like, hey, I'm going to prove that I'm the best guy. What do we see on TV every day? There's some law firm advertising, and they're either the biggest or the best. And they're either the biggest, the best, or the local, whatever else. And so we've got to start advertising ourselves on social media. We don't have to buy billboards or anything else, but we've got to start letting people know we're professionals. This is how we do it. And then we also have to go back to when that friend calls, says, hey, I want to see a house. We've got to get a little uncomfortable and say, okay, rules have changed. I need to send you a disclosure. Or when you meet them at the house, make sure you're signed up, because as a listing agent, I'm not supposed to let you in if you don't have a buyer's agreement with that person. And so that's the biggest law, is if you're a listing agent and you're just letting anything happen, or if you're a buyer's agent and you're still meeting people and showing them houses, not only are you in violation of the NAR rules and state's going to get you, but the big old boy Department of Justice is going to come after you as well. And so
as a listing agent, how do we police that? How do we know that they've got a buyer's agent? Do we make them send us?
you can make them send it. Yeah. And so, because if you don't, then, and I got a feeling in showing time, they're probably going to have to upload,
I was gonna ask.
a buyer's agent.
Something in showing time to help
Yeah.
us automate that.
And I'll ask the guys at the MLS that I'm dealing with, but yeah.
Says they got to put on there just to remind you to get. They don't right now look at anything in place to actually put the document, it's just to remind you to make sure you have that document.
Hear anything?
Can y'all hear me?
There you go.
Now, yes.
Man, I can't tell you how much I just talked and y'all missed it. So,
We saw you.
I'm sorry. Anyway, but so the question was coming up is that if you have a client call and we're just kind of like, we're always, the state said you're not supposed to show them anything. You're not even supposed to show virtual information to them. The problem is that virtual information is a published product out there that they can go and find it anywhere. You can still help them. You can't take them and show them a house. And you have to, you can send all this stuff to them, recap them, send it to them so they can know. And if they don't want to use you, then, the problem's going to be is that, like we've had in the past, I've had agents call and said, hey, I've been showing so-and-so, and I had it happen to me. I showed about 6 houses back in my crazy world of representing buyers, is that, I showed these people some houses, and on a Monday, I called them and said, hey, a new listing came up over the weekend. They're like, oh, we bought a house Saturday. We went to an open house, signed a contract. And I'm like, I never signed them up, so they were not my client. I was helping them. And so, and I wound up spending all my time getting out there and not collecting anything. And so it's hard enough when you do sign them up and they do that. It's hard still going and making them. Now, if they buy a house that you've shown them or something, but if they go buy one that you didn't show them, then that's where the big fight is and stuff like that. And so, but there's also what's addressed in some of this stuff that I'm gonna try to go over today is if you're holding an open house, not your listing, you hold an open house and somebody comes, they don't have an agent, then, and they want to buy the house and you put it together, then you can't collect a commission on that. You know, if you're sitting at Horton or Portrait Homes or whatever else it is, and you're doing an open house for us just to pick up somebody, you cannot collect a commission on somebody that just walks in. They're not your client, and so you can't just sit there and put it together, get them to sign it. You have to, and if I go back, some of the builders and people sitting in homes was, if somebody comes up, they immediately hear you need to sign these documents, and if you want to buy, we'll be your agent. You didn't give them a choice. They felt like they've got to buy that house through you. At this point, you got to disclose, hey, I'm sitting for the builder. You know, I would love to present my value to you and sign an agreement. But if not, and that buyer goes back to the builder the next week, you're out of luck, unless the builder wants to sell you something, you know, pay you a little referral fee or something. And so, so there's a lot of things that's being corrected, let me say. I don't think we're seeing a whole lot of change, but it's all being corrected. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just clarify, because sometimes I
Sure.
have to say it out loud. So if I was sitting in a house for Tony, say it real
Tony.
quiet so I didn't say it out loud.
Yeah.
Tony. So if I was sitting for Tony and somebody came in and I explained to them and disclosed that I was not the listing agent, but I could represent them if they wanted me to, and they then decided to sign paperwork and then make an offer, I
Yes.
could represent them?
Yes.
Okay.
But you cannot, because in the past, as you're sitting out there and now you're just claiming representation, because they don't know. If you don't explain your position there, they just assuming you're the listing agent or whatever. And so that's a non-disclosure. You're
So it's
not,
still the same as long as I really disclose it.
as long as you
and-
disclose,
okay.
you let them know, hey, I'm just sitting here. If you don't have an agent, I'd love to represent you. You know, the hard thing we're seeing is that you've got to say, you've got a right to go get your own agent, you know, but because too many people were sitting there saying, look, the only way you get this house is come through me. And so we're paying for that. And
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
so you can still sell them the house and make a commission, but you got to disclose. Everything is, I will say 1,000,000 times today, it's all about disclosure. That's all it is, just a little extra disclosure. I think it's going to make us all work a little bit harder just to make sure we've got documents. You know, because if we sit there and go back and forth on negotiations, we're supposed to do net sheets on each counter offer. Do we do that? No, not all the time. We should, we're supposed to. That's a violation. So anyway, so I'm gonna hit a couple of things that NAR's putting out there, and I sent links yesterday. I'm like, hey, copy and paste those to your Facebook. You know, to me, this is a great opportunity to be teaching the public about our change, because everybody doesn't know, but I've had plenty of people coming up like, okay, so, you know, I don't get to pay the commission or whatever. I'm like, okay, if you're coming in with that attitude, then the commission's zero. You're expecting nothing, so I'm gonna give you nothing. And so walk in there confident, put it all together. I had a walkthrough yesterday on one of my houses, and when I walked through, it was up in Fultondale, I met the people, and I'm like, wait a minute, y'all called me, I left on Saturday, went and met with y'all, I've been in touch, and now y'all sent a contract to another realtor, and I told the realtor, I said, you know, I said, what's fixing to change is I'm not gonna have to pay you for this next time. And so the shame is that we've gotten into a practice of just sending our people out to find a house to where we're supposed to be with them. And D.R. Horton will say, just send them on, we'll take care of them. No, we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to go, meet them, be there every aspect. If you can't be there, you need to get another agent to be there and show them new construction, existing construction, everything that's out there. And so let me go over this home buyers. Here's what the NAR settlement means for you. Any questions before I go on? Okay.
So what if you do have a buyer's agency with somebody and they just happen into an open house?
No, if that's
Still
fine,
right.
that's fine. You didn't
Okay.
tell them to go over there.
I got you.
And
Okay.
so, now look, if they walk into an open house and it's not one that you've shown them and they don't tell the other agency, then you're not gonna get a commission. And so,
Why? If I
well,
have a
you can,
buyer's-
you can go after them, you know, the buyer, but you can't go after the seller and say, hey, you owe me money.
If the buyer goes straight to the seller and cuts you out.
Yeah, if they do
Oh, no,
that,
I just meant if my, because you said
Yeah.
that,
if they go over there to an open house, say you're under agency agreement, then they go to an open house and they love it, and right then and there, the deal's cut for them, and you don't know anything about it.
okay, I
But,
misunderstood. I
yeah.
meant if I wrote it, because
Yeah,
you said.
yeah, if they go and then you come back and you
Yeah,
write it,
okay.
communications are between you and the other agent. And
Okay.
so, I'm telling you, Horton, I've talked to their people, is that everybody in this world just sends people to Horton. And, you know, and I'm just like, okay, those days are over. And, because Horton's gonna be good enough to realtors that they're still gonna pay, but where the Department of Justice is gonna come in, or the state, or somebody's gonna say, all right, we wanna see agency. Horton, did y'all get this sent to you, or whatever? And so, the pressure is gonna be on any other, the builders, agents, new construction, is documentation. If you don't have it, you're gonna get in trouble. They're allowing it to happen. So, you know, I'm sure Horton's gonna say, hey, just send me your document that they're your agent and we'll work with them. And so, but to me, that says, we'd rather you stay out and let us take care of them. What's wrong with that? You're not representing your client. They're having to sign a contract. They're getting into something over their head, and at closing, oh, I didn't know that. Well, you're sitting there waiting on your check. You should have been there to start with and read it and give them some advice on what's gonna happen. And so that's where more problems are gonna happen, so, and pop up. So, all right, to my Zoom world out there, anybody have any questions, or can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just be careful, just kind of stay right on the computer.
So, okay, so home buyers, here's what the NAR settlement means to you. This is information going out. Buying a home is one of the largest financial transactions most people ever undertake. Agents who are realtors are a trusted source. They give us a little credit here of advice and stand ready to help you navigate your home buying journey, make all the choices. NAR's recent settlement has led to several changes that benefits home buyers. We want to clarify them. Settlement for these means, and now they're letting the people know already. Hey guys, how's it going?
What's up?
Come on in.
Are we late?
You are. So just 28 minutes. Hey, Chris, pull the dunce hat out of the closet and put it on Al over there. So anyway. Hey, we can't blame him because he's probably
Yeah, he's part of the Al, so.
Hey, you are who you hang out with, buddy, I'm gonna tell you. And so, anyway. So the buyer agreement must include components concerning compensation, a specific and conspicuous disclosure of the amount of rate of compensation the real estate agent will receive, or how this amount will be determined. I also meant to say something that I can't tell you how many buyers showed up at closing and saw you walking away with a $20,000, $10,000 commission, didn't have a clue what you were gonna make, or nothing's been disclosed, or they don't know what your rules are. Compensation that is objected, flat fees, whatever, and not open-ended. So our commissions cannot be open-ended. It has to be a fixed amount, fixed rate. Hey, this is what we're gonna collect from you, and that you're responsible. And I'm gonna go over those forms in a second. So compensation shall be whatever the amount the seller is offering to the buyer. That's not clear. The buyer's agency says, hey, we're gonna work with sellers and hopefully they'll pay us. And then a term that prohibits the agent from receiving commissions for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed to in that agreement with the buyer. So that tells you that. Hey, it's 2.5%, what they typically pay, but the buyers work some deal, give me a kickback for an extra point or whatever. So that's just what gets us in trouble. A conspicuous statement that broker fees and commissions are fully negotiable and not set by law. again, what happened, companies were fixing their rates. They're telling you as a buyer's agent, you have to collect 3% from your buyer regardless. And then they wiggle with that. But when those documents start going out, what is it? Rates are set. And rates are not supposed to be set. They're supposed to be negotiable. The difference here is that you've got to determine what your rate is, what you're going to charge somebody. Amanda, if you want to collect 2.5%, 3%, you've got to tell them, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to save you this much money. And they may say, well, I'll pay you 2%. It's your option. Do you want to do it for 2? Do you want to do it for 1? Or do you want to do it for 3? At that point, you have the option of doing it or walking away. Say, no, I'm not going to do it for you. And so call Chris, hey, I got a 1%er here. You know, do you want it, or refer it out or something else like that? And before I forget this, as we go through here, and you can find out if you find a listing agent that's sitting there saying, okay, my client signed, they're paying me at 5%, but they're not letting me share this with anybody. Then my objective at that point is going to be, okay, I'm going to send you a referral. Hey, my client's going to come, I'll send them to you, pay me a 30%, 40% referral. And that's where you've got to really kind of look at what's best for your client at that point, and where are you going to make some money? Are you going to work for your client? Are they going to pay you 3%? So there's a whole lot of negotiation going on. What you cannot do is say, we can't do that. You got to pay me 3%. You can't force anybody to pay you anything. So you've got to negotiate that up front, have it all in writing with your client, whether you're on the buyer side, builder side, listing side. So it's all about how good are you at your presentation. I'm going to tell you, I've seen some bad agents, but they're as good as anybody opening the door and letting hey go walk through. That's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be good negotiators, good door greeters, and some of the top agents don't open doors. They've got their people going out there so that they can negotiate and earn and improve more services and better value. And so anyway, so written agreements apply to both in-person and live virtual home tours, as you said. So we've got to have them. You do not need a written agreement. Now, in that virtual home tour is if it's something you can only get off the MLS, because you can put a virtual tour on there that is owned by realtors only, and people that are members are there, but you're not supposed to share that if it's one of my listings and you go in and pull our 360 video, you're not really supposed to share that to your client without one approval or permission or whatever. So some of those things are still not staked in the ground solid. So we just got to tread lightly until we get those. You do not need a written agreement if you're just speaking to an agent at an open house or asking them about their services. The seller may agree to offer compensation to your agent. This practice is permitted, but the offer cannot be shared on MLS. MLS are local marketplaces used by both buyers and listing brokers to share information. You can still accept concessions from sellers, such as offers to pay your closing cost. And so the settlement doesn't change. Agents who are realtors are here to help you navigate the home buying process and are ethically obligated to work in the best interest. Compensation for your agent remains fully negotiable. And if your agent is a realtor, they must abide by the Realtor Code of Ethics and have clear and transparent discussions with you about compensation. When finding an agent to work with, ask questions about compensation and understand what services you are receiving. You have choices. Work with your agent to understand the full range of these choices when buying a home, which will help you make the best possible decision for your needs. More information at facts.realtor. This is information that NAR has got as part of the settlement. They've got to educate the public out here with information. So we need to learn it and do what it's been said. Now on a seller side, says you still have the choice of offering compensation to buyers brokers. As we'll go over in a minute, you're going to have to make sure you're highlighting and initialing that several times. You may consider doing this in a way of marketing your home or making your listing more attractive to buyers. So one thing that I heard is that if you're sitting there working a listing and somebody says, I don't want to pay anybody, I just want to pay you 2%, and they take it, then it's like, they're saying, well, tell them, if you really want to get a good offer, we got to put it out here in the marketplace to other, buyers agents that we need to share. And so, but they still have that choice. And so, not to let you share it. And so this is telling them you don't have to, they don't have to share it. This disclosure must be made to you in writing in advance of any payments or agreements to pay another broker acting for buyers. It must specify the amount or rate of such payment. So they tell you, no, you're not going to share. You get an offer to come in. You present your offer saying, hey, here, we're paying, the house is listed at 280, you're offering 285. We want closing costs plus 2% commission. Now they present that, and then the seller can still sit there and say, okay, I'll take it. Or the seller can deny it, even though they told you up front on the listing. The whole thing there is on the listing, now you can't advertise 2.5%, or that we will pay a buyer's agent, or if somebody calls you, it's like, no, you got to collect it on your own. And so,
So you can't, if your seller says, hey, I'll agree to a 5%, yeah, you can share 2.5. If an agent calls me and says, hey, I want to show this house, are they going to pay? I can't say, I just have to say, write it on your.
no, you can say, if the seller tells you, yeah, you've got that agreement, but in this case, if the seller says, no, I'm going to pay you 2.5%, then you have to say, we don't have anything. Yeah.
Questions of a buyer.
Yeah. And so, but if you're a buyer's agent, don't let that prevent you from, hey, let's make an offer and ask for it. And so this is a game of negotiations. I kid some folks that we're in a business of, as administration, we deal with negotiators all day, every day. And so I'm like, all right, I tell Ed 1, he says 2, we're just always negotiating some moment. And so we're negotiating from the listing agreement, buyer's agency agreement, then we're negotiating in the contract time. So there's never a wrong time to ask for closing costs or commissions or whatever else you may want to ask for in there.
So we don't have to negotiate that before we even go show a house.
What you have to, no, not between you and the seller.
Okay.
And so what you have to do is, when you go to show, you've got your client under contract saying, hey, you're going to pay me 2.5%, 3%. And I mean, that's y'all's agreement between you and your buyer at this point. And then you find a house that they like, and you tell them they're not offering any closing costs. I've just talked to the agent. She's not going to pay anything there. At that point, you can say, well, let's look at it. If you want to make an offer, then we can ask for it. And because what you're negotiating for your buyer now is that they just offer, you've got an agreement at 2.5%, 3% for you to go out and show them homes. Well, if you can pick up 2% of it in the sale, then they still owe you a 1% fee. And so it's all negotiable in there. And so, yes, sir.
I was just about to ask you a question now. If the seller said they give me 2.5,
Yeah.
and the buyer said they're gonna give me 2.5, won't that be fine? Can I do that?
Um,
Don't do that.
You can do that. I mean, only you would do that. And so, no, I know a bunch of other agents that would do that. And so,
But then if you just disclose that to your client gonna go, hold up, wait a
yeah.
minute.
Yeah. The question is, we're gonna get back. The question was, if the listing agent says, yeah, we'll pay you 2.5, and your buyer's agent says, or your buyer says they'll pay you 2.5, can you collect 5? There's nothing, there's.
It's an ethics thing, yeah.
No, it's not.
You said that in a couple of screens ago. Didn't you read that?
And
That
it's
it couldn't
how's
be
that,
over the.
how are you serving your fiduciary duty to do that?
Yeah, and that's,
If my buyer has to
Okay.
let's just say the seller's not giving you a commission.
yeah,
We'll assume.
Okay.
The seller's not gonna, I'm gonna find you some house.
Okay.
You're not giving 2%.
but your buyer's agency agreement with them says that you will show, and if they pay, so now that you've got a 2.5%, 3% agreement, then you're gonna be going, trying to show those houses and get paid, part of that. And so, yeah, don't open a can of worms yet, man. So, Linda's unmuting herself and fixing to yell, so, anyway. And so, yeah, and so,
Was that Al?
That was Al, so write him
I
up.
knew it was Al.
That was Al Smith. Let's be clear. Alfonso Smith is listed in the license, so,
Got it.
yes, ma'am.
So essentially, from the buyer standpoint, the thing that we have to disclose upon the agreement is whatever our proposed commission is.
Yes,
You're putting them on notice.
yes,
And then once we go out and show home or reach out to the listing agent and ask if there's compensation, if our commission is 2.5% in that buyer's agreement and the seller agrees to that, then it's almost like a washout.
yeah,
You're basically disclosing what you expect to be paid.
yeah. It's intended to be a washout that you're,
Yes.
and I'll go back to, and now I'm gonna answer your
See,
question
that's
where
what-
you're,
that's what
wait a minute, whoa, where he's correct. But first thing is, we're entering into an inclusive buyer agency agreement. What is agency? Agency is a legal contract agreement creating fiduciary responsibilities. And so your job is to protect your client, but you can make money. The situation he's talking about is you've signed a 2.5%, 3% with your buyer. You take him to D.R. Horton that's now offering 6% commission to the buyer's agent. And so really you tell them, hey, you don't have to pay me a dime. The seller's paying me. And so now you're not bound to 2.5% or 3%. You can sit out here because there's people offering bonuses or whatever to the buyer's agent. So this agreement does not prevent you from making more if somebody offers it. So, but as long as it's not costing your client more money. And I'm just gonna tell you, that's hard to say because I'm watching D.R. Horton, not just Horton, but a lot of the builders, including myself, is that we've raised prices $20,000 on houses, trying to get people. We're offering buy downs, big closing costs, and bonuses. And so, but the thing is they didn't just do it for the one house you're showing, they did it for all the homes in the neighborhood. And so your client's still buying in there, paying $20,000 more than they should have. But you're not breaching any fiduciary duties at that point because they're offering it to everybody. That's just not some deal that you and the builder, conjured up. And so, now if you've got a client that says, hey, I'll pay you 2.5%, I think you're worth it. And I think you probably would be the one guy to get away with that and say, hey, if you collect it from the seller, hey man, Al, I think you're worth 10%. I wish you can get that. So as long as, golly bum, and I say things all the time, is that we can pretty much do anything we want to certain levels, Miss Linda, as long as you disclose it, as long as they sign it, as long as they agree to it. Boom, you got a piece of paper, you explained it, and it's all there. But again, our jobs are make sure we're not being greedy out there. That's what got us where we are today. But our job's also to make as much money as we can. And if you're working hard and everything else, man, it's out there. Just make sure it's signed off on before it all happens, and we go from there.
But isn't it the whole point of the buyer agency that you're creating with your client is, if seller's not offering this, you're going to pay me either my 2.5% or 3%.
Yeah.
We're not trying to double up.
No, the agreement's
That's what I'm
not
trying to make
that.
clear.
The agreement's not saying, hey, the seller's not paying anything, you've got to pay me. You're negotiating with your client to pay you. And so there's nothing in there that says, hey, if the seller doesn't pay me, it says, you pay me. If I find you a house, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna search and I'm gonna work for you. You owe me 2.5%, 3%, whatever you negotiate on. So you go out there, and it states in here, we will show houses that they will offer us and pay us. And so there's basically a written part of this exclusive buyer agency agreement that says, if we collect that, we're not going to charge it to you. Now, Swifty Al comes in here, is like, okay, you're going to pay me this. Are you okay if I collect it over here? So, so that's the whole difference. You can negotiate anything you want to outside of this, as long as it's in writing and amended. So, Linda, any comments on that? As long as it's amended and keeps you out of jail, I think they can do whatever. So,
Yeah, I'd like to hear about it before they do it, though.
yeah. Well, look, it happens because I sit there and see payments, and I'm like, man, how did so and so just make $20,000 on a $300,000 house from Horton? Well, man, they offered 6%. And so,
Well, they were on the bonuses too, depending on.
yeah, getting bonuses and all that stuff. So that's just a package that they authorize. And so with that, I'm gonna jump to one other thing that I've got while it's on my mind. I'm so ADD if I'm thinking of it. Yeah. Yeah, if you took their 6 and then still try to charge them 2.5 is what we're talking
I think
about,
that's
so,
what we're trying to
yeah,
clarify.
and so,
I was gonna say, it says in there that it has to be signed by the buyer.
has to be signed by the buyer,
Seller.
so. All right, and while we're there, before we jump into anything else, the other big thing that they're watching is targeting. You know, targeting in this is something totally different from targeting neighborhoods and all that, is that if you're a buyer's agent and your buyer, you've got a 2.5%, 3%, and your buyer says, hey, I like this house. And you call, we're not paying you, we're not paying anything. And you know your client really can't pay you. You've got to find them a house that's paying you your commission. You better show them the house. And so at that point, if they're not paying and they can't pay, you may not make anything, you know.
Like, you need to ask about it ahead of time, to even know that.
Say what?
We're still asking about that ahead of time.
Look, anytime you go to make a showing, just when you call, you don't have to send, but if you set up a showing, you've got to let them know you're under agency. But the first thing you do is call and say, hey, we like your house. What, are you paying anything on my side? If they say no, then you're sitting there like, if you don't show that to your client and they ask you for it, you can get busted. And so, because now we're putting commissions ahead of our duty to our buyers. Yeah.
What if the buyer says that they don't wanna see anything? They're offering a commission, they're not offering a commission.
That's their call. Get it in writing, get them. The question is what if a buyer says, I only want to see what they're offering your commission on? But again, something that I said a while ago is if they say no, make them an offer and add
Ask
it.
for it.
Ask for it. Just say, hey, here's our offer, but we want you to pay. Now your buyers check initialing that. We want you to pay our guy 2.5%.
I guess my thing is, like, I've never charged my buyers anything. If I don't get paid, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
But I've never not gotten paid.
Yeah,
So I always mark that out on the current one.
yeah,
So I'm gonna start telling my clients, like, sorry, if they don't pay me, you've got to pay me when they don't have enough money to even make their down payment.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I've got to figure out.
Well, the money will come out of HUD, right?
They're making it where they can, but it's still gonna make their house payment. I mean,
Now, look, also, while I'm thinking of this, is VA is adapted, and I think FHA is gonna offer it too. Yeah. So they're not offering a commission, your guys can't pay a commission. The price is 200,000, make an offer of, 205, put in their buyer's agency. And so the contract with VA is gonna say purchase price and then commission price. So they're gonna add to their, we can add in there. And so VA's coming out that they'll pay you. And so even if all the appraisal has to come out at is the purchase price. And so VA, FHA, and I guarantee you Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae is gonna do the same thing. And so, and we all know back in the beginning when Linda Wagner started selling real estate is that,
You want me to hit him, Linda?
you can, I'll give you,
Chris, you know what to do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Linda used to say, if you give me 2 rocks, I'll sell you a house. But really, back before we had all this, home prices were X amount. We weren't on computers advertising. What kind of rocks were you trading, Linda? Everybody wants to know. So, just
Randy Brooks.
whatever they could dig out of the sand. So, Linda probably needs a pretty good laugh about right now. So anyway, but, and you never sold anything for 2 rocks. I know. You got at least 5 rocks
3
per
rocks.
deal. Yeah. So.
I would never sell for 2.
Yeah, and so, but back when I first got into mortgage lending, the realtors had booklets, and you'd sit there and find houses, and nobody knew about it. And so we had complete control of what the listing was, and then we would always, if it's 100,000, back in Linda's time, they were probably $200, for a house or whatever, and so you just added your commission to it, and they just appraised. It was enough difference in there. Back then, most of the banks did their own financing and did their own appraisals. So So period of time, home prices have just gotten to where it's built in. I mean, values have gotten where they are because we paid buyer's agents, and we've added 5-6%. And so that's always been a calculation in there. I've always gone, sit down, do an evaluation, find out, hey, what do you need to get out of it? Are you good if we make 5% or, whatever we have to do? And so the truth is, what didn't get presented to court is that it's built in. I mean, we sit there and when we advertise it and say, hey, this is what it is, when we disclose to our seller, we've got a 5% commission listed in there in our listing agreement. And so it's always been built in. So now somebody's in there, and it's because somebody wanted 10 rocks instead of 5, and they're playing outside the game, and so we all get to pay for it. And so, but I'm gonna guarantee you, as buyer's agents, I've heard somebody say, a couple of companies are saying, we're just not paying. Again, that's against the law. If they list an agreement and the seller says, hey, I'm fine, that's their right. This is not EXP or Keller Williams or Avast Realty's decision on how we're gonna run business. It's still buyers and sellers. We represent them. We've got a fiduciary duty. If somebody goes to XYZ Real Estate and they said, well, our policy, we're going to list your house and we're going to save you 2.5%. And they said, but I want to pay 2.5%. I understand. I need all these other agents to come in. Let's build it in. Then they have to do it. And so there's not going to be a flat, no, we're not paying you one. And because then we say, well, we're not going to pay you one if you ever bring, somebody to us. And so we're a network of realtors that's all members of the NAR and all these other things. And so we all kind of work together. One of the things that held us up on getting out is that we're a member of Birmingham, the Beach, and Huntsville. Well, first thing is that the state came out with documents, and we could have had these documents to you guys 30 days ago, but we knew that Birmingham Association of Realtors is not adopting. They want their own. They got their ego. I mean, seriously, they've got their ego powers, and the Beach is the same. They all want their own. They're all similar, but they're different. And so, so that's the biggest thing here. And so everybody's going to negotiate and work this, and we're all going to sit there and make some money. I don't see anywhere where this hurts anybody. If you do your job and you explain what your role is, and you're supposed to be doing this anyway. There's not a whole lot of change in this listing agreement or buyer's agency agreement. Linda, am I wrong? I don't see a whole lot of difference 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
No, there's really not.
There's really not, except now I see an addendum. What's in the addendum? The same thing that's in the buyer's agency agreement, just a reminder and saying, hey, we went over these things with you. And so when I say we, I mean as an industry nationwide, we have done a poor job of explaining and disclosing what we're supposed to do and who we are. I have made a lot of comments about what I don't like about the real estate industry is how unprofessional it is, because there's so many people out here just doing stuff. I'm hoping this cleans it up, because if this is what you do to make a living, you're going to keep on making a living, and you're going to be more professional about it. And a lot of these guys that don't want to do it, they're either going to get kicked out by Department of Justice or the state or somebody. They're going to have to disclose, because those of us that do listings going to make you have your buyer's agency agreement, send it to us. Because if I let John in with somebody he just picked up, or got a phone call, and I don't know that it's his client, and I'll let him in my client's house, and the next day everything's stolen, who's responsible? They're coming to me first. And so, not John, because I'm the one that let them do it. And then John, so, and they'll hit us all somewhere down the road. And so I'm just going to tell you, the next 2 or 3 years, we better be on our toes, because the DOJ wanted changes. They settled for some of these things, letting us still do it. I think somewhere in there, the head guy at DOJ's wife must have been a real estate agent. So he agreed to, hey, I can't lose my wife's income. And so, yeah, hey, I've talked to Quentin Carter. He's president of the MLS, and his life's been a nightmare the last 6 months. And he's counting the days to December the 1st when his term's up. And so It's like, hey, if I'd known all this was coming. And so anyway, here's what the settlement says for home sellers. We still have a choice to offer compensation. And again, with that right there, when we hear the rumors about certain agencies saying, we're not offering it, it's not their choice. It's the seller's option to pay. And so your agent must disclose to you and obtain your approval for any payment or offer of payment that's the listing broker will make to another broker acting for your buyers, That's already in y'all go look at the old listing agreement. It's been in there. It says you're gonna pay me X amount and I will use that, to share. And we're using it to help you sell your house. And so disclosure must be made to you in writing in advance of any payment or agreement to pay another broker by acting for buyers, and must specify the amount of rate such payment. If you choose to approve an offer of compensation, there are changes to how this can happen. As you, the seller, still make an offer of compensation, but your agent cannot include it in an MLS. MLSs are local marketplaces used by both buyers and sellers. Your agent can advertise your listing via off MLS platforms such as a social media flyer and website. That was one thing the DOJ had agreed on, is that on our website, we can put in there, we pay 2.5% on all listings. But again, the DOJ said no. On your individual listing, if you do a flyer like you do a lot of times, you can put in there, buyer's agents 2.5%.
Oh, so we can include that on our social media
You can include it in social media.
You can also have a sign writer too.
Sign writer, yeah. So sign writer out there, buyers, the seller says, hey, it's good. Advertise it, man. Look. Huh? Yeah, they just want to get it sold. Look, we put on there, we're putting 20,000 closing costs, 10,000, so we're running all these signs. So it's just, boom, it's just another disclosure to help sell. And now if a seller that's under contract is out there, they're going like, boom, I love the house, they're going to pay my agent, so I'll come out and break out pretty easy. So you can advertise off in MLS platforms. You as the seller can still offer buyer concessions on an MLS, concessions for buyer closing costs. So you can't advertise the rate or the commission rate, but you can put in there 5,000 closing costs, bonus. One of my builders, Wind Lakes, we're looking at Mercedes to stick in the garage. Buy this house and get a free Mercedes or something. So, I mean, I'm serious. It's just like, boom, trying to sell some stuff. So I remember those days. Settlement doesn't change. Agents or realtors who are here to help you to navigate the process of selling your home are ethically obligated to work in your best interest. Compensation for your agent remains fully negotiable. You have choices. Work with your agent to understand the full range of these choices when selling your home. So again, those are what NAR is going to advertise, and there's going to be a lot of advertisements spent of our money, and they're going to educate the public. But if I'm you guys, you got buyers, start pitching yourself. Why call Alexander Shinaro when you can call Norris and Norris? We're bigger. And so advertise who you are, what you do, and the services. And it's almost what I'm hearing calling, and we're in a crazy political world with the presidents, and I'm like, just quit calling names and just tell me what the hell you're going to do. What's your change? What's your policy? And that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear, hey, you don't want to use that guy or this guy. Pitch why you're the candidate, why the person that they should, use instead of their aunt or whatever, is that, hey, I'm a full-time licensed real estate agent. Tony's a full-time, even though she's got another job. She probably works more hours as a realtor than she does on her other job, and she sells a ton of houses. And so not coming down on you in Charnessa or anybody else, it's like, boom, your full-time sales. But use that, use what our company numbers are. We're selling, we're doing all of this stuff. All right, questions before I move on. I'm gonna hit the documents real quick if I can find them. And so
I got a question. Okay. The seller signs a listing agreement and says, I'm not paying the buyer's agent anything. Or you've got a client and you show them the house, they can't pay you. Are they free? I mean, you're writing a contract for them, whatever they want in the contract, if they want a closing cost or a refrigerator or whatever.
Mhm.
Can they not want the commission to be paid by the seller? Can they not put that in there?
Yeah.
Hey, you need to pay my buyer's agent
Yeah.
3% or 2% or, $50.
Even though we talked about that a while ago, if they say, no, we're not paying, put it in the contract and ask for it. So you're saying if you're the listing agent and a buyer comes up and you got both sides, or you
No,
say
I'm just the buyer's agent and I'm screwed. And
buyer's agent, yeah.
because my clients are, poor young kids that barely got a down payment,
Yeah. No, your job is at that point, it's the decision of the buyers, because if you're sitting there, you've signed an agreement, you make sure you tell them, hey, I'm not a charity worker. I don't have a pro bono. I mean, this is an agreement. You're entering into an agreement to use my services. And no matter where, at the end of this, you owe me some money. And so, don't ever take that stand of, I use negotiation of losing interest or losing commissions at the last moment. And so,
but they're free to say, yeah, I know I owe you this, but I want to get it out of the seller.
yeah, no, you can ask for it. You can ask for it. They don't necessarily have to, pay it. Or what you can do is you can offer, say if your commission's $5,000, you can raise the sales price of the house $5,000 and say, hey, it's to be paid out of closing, and just disclose that make your buyers sign something that, hey, we're including our commission in our offer so that you can be paid from that. And so that's where the seller's going to take it. I just had a house contract, came in 5,000 over. They're asking for 5,000 closing. So we're not paying anything. We're happy to do it. And so it all works.
And the appraiser's going to get mad.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, don't the house have to appraise?
Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say, is on my little deal where they came in, we had over 5, I had another offer, it came in over 9, or actually 10,000 over list, but they wanted 9,000 closing costs. I'm like, well, that's a good idea, but it's not going to appraise. I know my market. And so, so a good listing agent's going to look at it and say, hey, it's cool. And I'll put in there, we'll pay it as long as it appraises. We'll accept it as long as it appraises. We'll pay it, but if not, we'll drop that or whatever. So,
Hey, Randy, I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you are showing your own listing,
Mm-hmm.
do you have to have a buyer's agency agreement, or is it just a transaction? What time would you need with that?
Transaction broker agreement on that. So, overall, there's different opinions on that. At that point, in our whole policy on the dual agency agreement that we don't let you do, is if it's your listing, we've entrusted a client to sign an agency agreement with us to sell their home. And here comes Joe Buyer, no agent. If you do a dual agency, now we're saying, hey, we're stepping out of agency with you that trusted me to sell your house so that I can represent XYZ guy here because he doesn't have an agent. So now I'm not representing anybody. We made a decision several years ago with this company is that we're not going to do that. If we enter into agency with somebody, then we're going to stick to agency through closing. But you get that person come in, you get them to sign a transaction agreement. I just did it Friday and went over everything with the ladies. I don't represent you, I represent my builder, but you don't have to get an agent and all this other stuff. And so you can still do that, but you represent them as a transaction broker.
Hello?
Yes.
It is.
Hello? Okay. You understand?
Does any of this, or how does this apply to?
Yeah.
Everything it was asked
Oh,
is
yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
to land or whatever, everything, whether it's land, houses,
All
whatever it
right,
is.
hold on just a moment. I'm on a Zoom
Closure.
call, so I'm gonna have to end the, wait a minute.
Mute yourself, please, Nancy. And so whatever you do, there's different agreements for land, commercial, whatever, everything
Great,
gotta disclose. And so,
I will.
disclosing and
Uh-huh.
everything is the same. Okay. All right, I'll open up the listing agency agreement. But I'm gonna go back to, and I've started doing, with my contracts, when agents send me, or, we've got our own builder's contract. And so when I put it together and send it out, I send them the compensation agreement at that point. And so what you want to do when you make an offer is fill out that document that we're fixing to go over that says, yeah, we do. And they're in the MLS, they're already in BrokerMint / Boat Trail / whatever else there. But anyway, everything's been downloaded. What? Boat Trail. Yeah, so anyway.
Sorry.
But anyway, so they're all there. We can take, and I'm also gonna, and I'm jumping around a little bit. The other thing you need to do is you need to copy these documents and have them everywhere you go. I'm just telling you, you're out there, somebody calls you, hey, I wanna go see this house, you're in the area, have it,
Put some in my car.
put them in your car, put them wherever you are. I was telling a story the other day is when I used to build, I had a realtor and had somebody come by, showed a house, and they wanted to buy it, and called the realtor. He showed up, met with them, and they all left. I said, did y'all do a contract? He said, oh, no, they're coming to my office at 1 o'clock. I didn't bring any contracts with me. I said, what? And I said, they're not coming back. They already told me they'd been to another neighborhood. Well, they left. We never heard from them again. I finally called her, and she had bought the house in the other neighborhood. Why? Because my realtor wasn't prepared. He didn't have a file with them, didn't have anything with them. So keep stuff in your car. It's important, no matter where you are. Keep contracts, keep listing agency agreements, keep buyer's agencies. We're so used to digital this day and time. Hey, we'll go send it to you and all that other stuff. But you walk onto the car lot over here and you're like, man, I really love that car. You think they're going to let you leave? And they're going to sell you a car, man. And we need to jump on it while they're hot and ready and go. And so, anyway, all right, exclusive buyer's agency agreement. Again, on my note here, I circled at the top agency, which means this is a legal agreement and it's fiduciary relationship between the seller and the agent and the brokerage. So there's not a whole lot of change about it, except, you sit here and you got to fill out the name and a Vast Realty and put your name in. But real property description and location, what they're really wanting us to know is, what do you want? Let's put it in here. And we need to dig in a little bit more, because when you're sitting there talking to them, does people ever, who wants to answer this? When's the last time somebody came in and said, I just want a house, I don't care? What do they usually do? They say, I want how many bedrooms? Baths, I want land, I want basement or crawl space. By the lake or off the lake, or, certain school systems.
And I want it for cheap.
Ma'am?
And they say I want it for cheap.
Yeah, I mean, whatever they want, put it in this agreement. That's your initial consultation with them, is that, hey, this is what we want. Because what the DLJ found is that we're out there showing people that don't know what they want. I sold a house to a young couple. They called me and they said, we either want Kalira, Helena, or Kelsey. And I said, okay, all right, we got 10 houses we want to see. I said, I said, this weekend, I want you to go to each of those areas and tell me which market you like. So, yeah, give me your short list. And then they came back and said, well, we think we really like Chelsea more than anything else. They said, well, here's more houses we want to see. I said, you go visit the neighborhoods and see what you think about them. And so they finally came back and said, we want this neighborhood. I went to work. I found them listings in it. We showed 10 houses. They bought one of the houses. So why didn't I jump in a car and run? I told them, I said, look, What I didn't want you to do is go to Montevallo and find a house you like and then realize you don't like the neighborhood or you don't like the school. There's no kids in there. And so what I made them do on their own is to find a neighborhood that they love. And I did that when we moved 30 years ago. We rode and saw kids on a Saturday. And I'm like, dude, if I knew now what I knew then, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have bought there. It was perfect for my kids. But the next morning we woke up, kids are all in our backyard and playing and all that stuff. So it was the perfect place for us. But we researched where we wanted to be. We didn't want to be anywhere else. So we were waiting and jumping, trying to find a house. That's what your client should be, and that's what you should do for them, is don't dare find them the perfect house in the bad neighborhood. And bad neighborhood's not who the neighbor is. It's just, it doesn't have the systems or the playgrounds or certain things for them. And it could be that it's an older couple that don't want all those kids. They wake up, what did you do to us? We don't want all these kids. And so on this contract, we're to put that, ask them these questions. Then the next thing is buyer's general location of possible suitable real properties include swimming pool, 2 bathrooms, covered porch, whatever. Look, this is like us going back to kindergarten, guys. The DOJ sitting there looking, saying, y'all don't know this. We've been letting people go find their own home and call us, and we just do the paperwork. We're not paid to do paperwork. We're paid to find people houses and help them break down and find out more stuff about schools and stuff like that. So,
but the other thing is sometimes my buyers will ask, what do you think about the neighborhood? And I don't. That's left up to you.
Yeah, that's why I say go Saturday. You
Right.
discover yourself, and we can't disclose that. I'm like, okay, so all we can do is share school information, walk to scores of where shopping and stuff like that, and help them with those things. The term here, this is going to be the interesting thing, is that you're going to have people call you that says, I want to go see a house. Now, you're going to sit there, your option is to say, well, I only show to people, you have to, I only show to people that's under, buyer's agency. Before you get started, we need to get you pre-approved. Make sure before you fall in love with this house, make sure it doesn't, create problems. I had a guy years ago, he came to me, was trying to find him a $150,000 house. Credit was bad, hooked him up with credit people. 6 months later, he called me, hey, I just got approved for $250,000. I'm like, okay, we're not showing you $250,000. How's it? You just got out of credit problems. Just don't start more. And so I had to talk them down. And so people will want whatever they want to or think they can afford, but sit there and let their banker talk to them. Pre-approved. But the other thing is you can sit there and say, hey, you're not pre-approved. What if it's somebody that you know that they're pre-approved? You assume that everything's good for them. There's nothing in all this lawsuit that says you can't show a house to somebody that's not been approved. That's just something that we should be doing, is make sure, do you really want to go spend a day with people? You don't know if they can buy it or not, and then find out, well, there's a credit issue there. And so so that's just part of it. But what you can do here on term is somebody calls you and they're like, well, we're really not looking, but we like this house. If we can get it, we might buy it and let you sell ours. You can do this term for a 1 day, or you can just put an address on there, send it to the listing agent. So there's nothing in all of this that says you've got to be 6 months under contract with somebody on a buyer's agency. So you can do it for 1 day, one specific house. You just need this permission that now if you show them that house, you're going to get paid a commission. If the seller's offering it, this is the only way you collect it. So you can do a 1 day buyer's agency if that's what you want to do. There's a lot of paperwork going on there. But the only way we really build our business is make them our client, make them our client that we're sitting there helping them find homes for. But there's going to be those times, I get them. All the time I'll get somebody, hey, can we go look at this lake house? I'm like, sure, let's go. I got nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon, and family's going to be over, but I'm going to leave them and go show you a house. I don't have anything under contract with them, so I'm taking a chance of leaving and not making any money. So here you got to say, I can't show it to you unless we're under buyer's agency agreement. And I'm gonna send you this, or I'll meet you, you sign it, so I can send it over. So it's all about having this piece of paper in your file, in your hand at all times, so that you can just go and show a house to somebody. Now, if it's somebody you don't know, do you really want to do that? No, I wouldn't think so. I think there comes a point to where everybody's going to back off and say, we're going to make you our client. And there's no more of this running, open, showing houses. And I've known realtors that they'll park at open houses in new neighborhoods, and they see somebody get out of a car, you tell they're not with a realtor, they're running, hey, let me show you this house. I'm like, come on, let's make them your client. So advertise, and that's one thing I was really gonna work on next week is I've got a little segment here that I'm writing on what we need to do as a company, as a brokerage to help you guys out, and I'm gonna hit it here in a little bit. So the terms of the service are in here, services that we're gonna do. And you guys, there's really not a whole lot more in here except that you need to disclose to them. You need to recap them still. There's a big clause in here on broker compensation. Purchaser agrees to pay to broker as compensation for locating a property acceptable, a fee of X amount or 3% or whatever, blank percent, or they pay broker compensation for obtaining property for a certain fee. So these things are blank. No longer is a company going to be able to put 5% or in there. That's between you to negotiate. And if they don't want to pay you, again, I said it earlier, you got the option of just don't work with them. And so, anyway, or you got to make sure it's worth working. And then here it says payment of fee by third parties. And so it says broker agrees that if it receives a fee or commission from the seller or seller's broker, the fee received shall be credited against the amount owed by the client to broker hereunder, although any compensation offered to broker by seller or seller's broker shall not exceed the amount which broker agrees to earn under this agreement unless agreed to buyer, broker, and seller's broker in writing. So saith Al Smith. So really that last language says unless it's agreed upon. And so it doesn't say you can't. It says you can, you won't unless it's agreed on. Clear as can be. As long as it's agreed on, signed by everybody, Miss Linda's the happiest person in the world. And so it all goes good. Is that correct, Miss Linda? Okay. No,
That's right. That's right.
Exclusive agency, commission earned or complete of transaction after expiration. We also put in here, if you've shown a house to them, they agree to, hey, if they go back, and it's happened, you show a house 2 weeks later, your contract's up with them, they go buy the house. They still owe you a fee. And so this is something you'll need to take, print, read, keep it with you, and know it so that you can get explained to them. Most people, I would think 90% of the people you go over this, they understand that they owe you a fee and that if they do this, they owe you a fee. And so, but it happens every now and then that they go on out. Affiliated business agreements, at that point, if you've got an agreement with the mortgage person or a title company, every agreement that I send out, I have to send an affiliated for High Point Title and, anything else that we have agreements to do with some people. Look, it's nothing there's nothing wrong with you having these affiliated business agreements as long as you're not getting kickbacks under the table and all that other stuff. Just disclose it. There's nothing wrong with you and your lender working things out or whatever. Just disclose what the business arrangements are. Everything that's in here, if you look at it, there's really nothing. It's just that all we've done and changed is that, hey, we're disclosing and giving you an option. Do you want to pay us 2.5%, 3%? And then the other thing, here's the amendment to it, is the broker fee disclosure amendment that we have to get them to sign. And it just really highlights number 7. Buyer agency agreement is not set by the associations. Broker fee is this, they have the option. So look, that's the same thing we went over in the buyer's agency agreement. It just makes them initial and sign, and it's a backup. form that says, you understand. So if they don't pay, and what I like about this on ours, if they don't pay, you've got something that backs up and says, you understood. And so, so do you push court of law or whatever for that? So I can go over, there's very few, and I don't know. I've never been screwed out of a real commission except the one time that I didn't have them under agreement, so they didn't owe me anything. But we've had some here where people will call and talk about it and just like, it's not worth going after. But that's your call, is it worth it to you or whatever to go after them? Some of this can go through small claims court and you just battle it out there. So there's nothing wrong with trying to collect money if they agree to it. So that's just a subject for another day. Yes, ma'am.
How do we get paid? Are they supposed to bring a separate check from them? It doesn't become part of the contract for the close of the house, correct? So it's a whole separate entity?
Yeah, they'll need to write a check to the brokerage and pay. So if they sit there, they agree, they buy the house, there's no commissions paid to you from there, they write you a check. Just make sure it's not cash or anything. Just make sure it's to the brokerage because you as an agent cannot accept a commission. It has to be paid to the brokerage. And then we process it and go from there.
Was the buyer writing the check?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if they do not have checks? What is another, because this happens all the time.
Yeah, they can wire the funds to us.
Can wire it to you.
Yeah. And so
And they always ask about the check, like the cashier's checks or the.
cashier's checks are fine. Anything made to advance road. Huh?
That's probably never gonna happen.
Yeah, I think if you explain it up right correctly and they feel like they saved a little money on the house or whatever, I think your chances are gonna be better that, hey, we added in the contract or added the VA. Yeah, but there's gonna be, this is the power team, man. They'll collect their money. So these girls are,
Wouldn't you be scared?
hey, I'm telling you, you walk
That
away.
wouldn't be a part of closing,
That would be better, wouldn't it?
like.
It would,
If they, at the closer's office, would the buyer not have to make sure that money is given to the settlement agent?
no, because this is an agreement between us and them, and so now we can, if they do it in writing, then it can be put on the HUD that it's an extra fee on the buyer side, and
That's what I'm doing.
yeah, and so they pay it too. And so really what you do is that, because we've had some stuff to where the buyer pays on the side for something additional, and so it's added in there, and then they write the check to the closing attorney.
And then
So,
it's added into the total.
yeah, into the HUD. So it's just an
Gotta do
extra
that every
expense.
time.
Yeah, I would think it goes better on the closing statement. But if it doesn't, then, they may say, hey, it's gonna take me a month to pay you, so, look, you're gonna be open to some, I'm just gonna sit here and tell you, nothing's gonna change with this. If you do your business like you're supposed to,
Even though they signed it, they still.
most people, we know about all this stuff because we're in this industry. We hear it every day. It makes sense to us. I guarantee you 90% of sellers out there or buyers, they don't have a clue what's going on. And
So
so,
you just need to make it seem like they have to bring that to closing for the closing to
Yeah.
take place.
Yeah.
And then you need to
You just-
collect that before we start signing.
Yeah.
really.
yeah,
Which is gonna be awkward, but
yeah.
let
Well,
me
no,
see your driver's license and my commission check.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I want a bank statement to prove that you got the money to pay me. And so, hey,
And you just pay the public attorney and have it on the hood.
yeah, that's what we're saying. Just make sure they write a check to the closing attorney and so that would be best. But, if they want to write a check, make it out to Linda Wagner and
That'll be fine.
that'd be fine. She'll appreciate the donation. So, anyway.
Al's over there, I want my check.
Yeah. All right. So guys, seriously, this, buyer's compensation agreement, most important thing you need to do when you're doing a contract and sending it in is sending it with this saying that, to get the listing agent, the listing broker, everybody needs to sign this. To me, this is,
Most terms change during the process.
yeah.
Just do an addendum.
Just do an addendum. Yeah. So when I send a contract out, I put this in there so they know, hey, we're paying at 2.5%. And so where I'm different is I use a builder's agreement, so agents are not just sending me to where if you're buying an existing house, you send a contract, print this out, put it in there and send it to them. Get them to sign it, and now they've agreed to it. This basically is a referral agreement, you know, except it says we're gonna pay you a commission, but the referral agreements are the same thing, is that at closing, we're gonna pay you a referral fee. So it's all agreed upon by both brokers. So everything's set in stone. This is your most important document to collect your money. Is you get this settled, boom, it's all done, and you move on. And so, so it just goes through what the compensation that you're asking for or what they've agreed to pay. And so just reading that, this just binds agencies or brokerages together to pay this. And so for us to pay, we've got to have this document in our folder. And so for you to collect, you've got to have this document in your folder. So this is as important as anything else you'll ever do in your agreements. This right here should take the fear out of you of not collecting your money. If you don't do this, boom, you're in trouble. Because they're like, well, we didn't agree to that. And so, and you know how some agents are, they forget between the contract and the closing. That's why we have documents. So Amanda just walked back in. Amanda, this is your most important document, the broker compensation agreement. When you make an offer on a house, or if you receive an offer on your listing and y'all have discussed it, add this in there. Just say, hey, we agree, let's get this out of the way and move on. And so y'all go over it. It just basically says, I'm the listing broker, you're the buyer's broker, here's our people, this is what we're gonna pay you. It's over with. Plain and simple. All the documents everybody's like worried about, here it is. That's the one I'm gonna carry everywhere with me, is like, hey, you know, we get them a house, we get contracts and everything else. And so make sure we read this. I'll send these documents out even though they're all in the system. And so. Yes. Okay, if that one's not in, we need to add it in there. And so there it is again in our stuff. And that's a commercial agreement. So exclusive agency listing agreement, I'm gonna try to push this through. We've been doing an hour and a half, which I'm fine, but I know this gets kind of long. You know, listing agreement goes through, it's all the same stuff, the addresses, the terms, the price, the commissions, but then it gets down to they're initialing everything, active market, coming soon. And then where's the, gets down here, right here, is that you offer us broker compensation. This is where we just sit there and talk. Say, hey, this is what we do. We're going to offer it out there. We charge a 5%, 6% commission fee. And what we do is we share it, but you've got to let me know. Typical is 2.5% or splitting it down the middle. I've had that argument. We've had some agents at the beach call, like, we were at closing, we got 3% and found out they had a 10% listing. So they said, well, it's supposed to be split. I'm like, there's nothing that says it's got to be split. Whatever's in the MLS, whatever they offer. I've paid one where I collected 10 before, and you know, and people get kind of pissy at closing. You made 9%, and so so yeah. I mean, if you don't ask for more, you don't get more. So if you just go in assuming, and so, but in this broker fee in this agreement, it has to be. There's several places in here where the seller concessions are in, and where we need to go back is like, you get a call, you know, your homes are out there, you're at 250, all of a sudden you think, hey, let's offer 5,000 closing costs. You need to go back, amend this, get an initial, documents need to be taken care of, or just have an addendum sent to them that they're authorizing us to pay, and you have to net them to let them know what their net's gonna be. So, so if you don't add any concessions at listing time, and you add it later, just make sure we get a note and approval from them and document it. So, so really in there, if you're listing, you've got to really disclose to your sellers is that, hey, the norm, there's no set price. You know, we can't sit there and say, hey, everybody charges 5%, that gets you in trouble. You know, it's like, hey, we charge 5. Typically, we split with the buyer's agent, makes it more marketable. There's 5,000 agents here in Birmingham. And, you know, to kind of help them draw in, you know, we need to offer to pay them a commission. And, or you can also say, if you don't want to, then their buyer has to pay them. So you explain all aspects of it. But I'm like, who's not going to take a listing because your client says, I don't want to pay anybody? Nobody?
Anybody at all, they won't pay anybody.
They'll pay you, you know, they'll pay you, but they don't want to pay any outside agent. And so, yeah, good question. Yeah, hey, I'm gonna pay you 2.5%, 3%, but I'm not paying anything else. And so it's okay.
Maybe at that point,
But-
that's up to the individual agent to have a very honest conversation with the seller
Yeah,
and say, look, this is the position you are voluntarily putting yourself in.
yeah,
You know, while I respect that you're right, this is potential ramifications.
yeah, yeah. You know, it's the same question, it's the same explanation we have when all your comps are at 285. Hey, I think we ought to be 278, 285, and they, no, I want 300. Okay. Either you list it at 300, waste your time, or you put in there, hey, we'll start at 300, 2 weeks, we don't get anything, we drop to 285 or 270. But those are just open questions and comments that you have. Everything in here is negotiable. And so it's like, yeah, I don't mind. You know, we'll put it out here. I think agents will show it. We're going to wind up negotiating either to pay or work it in. And so, so there's all kind of options out there. And that's where we've got to prove that we're good. We know what we're doing, what we're offering, and explain it to our clients. Everything about this is disclosure. I've said it over and over and over. Is disclose do whatever you want to. You know, sell an elephant with the house, just disclose, you know, hey, this is what the elephant cost and, you know, whatever else. And so as long as it's disclosed in there, it's all good. We've got to do better at disclosing with buyer's agents, what we've got to start doing, what this is going to change. Because I mentioned DOJ and the state and all this other stuff. Who's after them? Zillow. Who's after them? Open Door. You got all these virtual companies out there that their whole plan in this industry is to replace us just by letting people go online and find a house and make an offer. Well, the missing component in that is us, of a personal relationship, taking somebody, showing them the service, protecting them in their offers. And that's what we've got to disclose. I mean, everybody in this room is a realtor. Some of us do some other stuff. Would you buy a house without a realtor? No, you want somebody professional. I ask everybody, you know, when they come in and, hey, I'm going to use their agent. I'm like, okay, you're going to use your wife's lawyer in your divorce? No, you're not going to. I mean, it's just, you want some representation, and that's what we are. We're representation for buyers, and we're negotiators, and we know all the terms and stuff in there. And I can sit there and say, look, I'm going to negotiate you a price. And with the client of mine, the lady's saying, let's take the 289 offer. We're 278. I got a 282 offer. She said, let's take the 289 offer. I said, well, they want 8,000. I mean, they want 9,000 closing cost. And so by the time I net to her and say, look, you're making less on the higher offer than we are on this one, then she's finally realizing, man, I'm glad you know your stuff. And then I also told her, I said, it's not going to appraise for this. You know, that realtor is going to catch me in, hey, we're going to jump on your offer because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. It's going to appraise, and now they just walked in the back door and took this house because we got no option but to take what it appraises for. So if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know that it's not going to appraise, and you're not bringing a whole lot of value to your customers and stuff. And so that's where we've got to prove that, hey, I'll protect you. I'm going to make sure we get every dollar, dime, and that we can. I think I'm kind of finished with contracts. You know, I think as we see these big bad documents and everybody's worried, what are we going to do? I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. Just get them, keep them, read them, explain them to your customers. I think what's changing from what I'm seeing, and I'm talking to a trainer about coming in, and And I think where I see our industry going and NAR and a lot of the trainers out there is kind of showing our value presentation nowadays. I think it gives us a perfect opportunity to say, this is who we are. This is what we do, either as a company or you as individual agents out there. And so what I'm writing up is, it says deadline, we're setting up a new rule set down by the Association of Realtors, but it's going to be a lot more complicated and will require a ton more paperwork and effort to achieve the same results. But as my team and as our company, we're actively gearing up for significant changes that will become a new reality in a few short weeks. Here's 8 of the key things that I've kind of put together. One is we're going to fine tune our value proposition and help you guys with some stuff. We're going to upgrade our buyer consultations and no longer, boom, just meet you and, hey, I'm Randy Brooks at the front door. And, I'm like, okay, this is not my client. Also going through extensive training on the new forms. We're going to sit there and work on them and go and see how they work. We don't have all the answers right now. NAR doesn't, anybody else. It's just like more disclosure. There's going to be some changes. Expanding our script practices. We don't need to wing it. You don't need to show up and say, oh yeah, I like the neighborhood, 5 minutes in. Know your neighborhoods, know what's going on in the schools. We're going to provide more training to ensure our team's members avoid steering. Again, steering is sending the, just showing homes that are overpriced because they're paying a commission. I'm not there going to show a house. You're going to get in trouble just like you would certain neighborhoods or anything else. And so you can't do that. So we got to figure, like I said, call the agents, work with them, and I promise you it's going to work out if you do it right. Locking down some new communication protocols, launching a method of communicating levels of cooperative commissions. Everybody thinks one company's doing this, one's not. What are we in the business doing? Our business is to sell houses, find buyers, sell houses. Do you really think a company's going to say, we're going to blackball every one of you guys? Well, some of them have been doing it, because they do inside listings and all that stuff. But in the open market, they're not going to block us out. They want to sell. They want to make their 2.5%, 3% just like we do. And so they're going to make it work. Again, a lot of the stuff is going to be working it in the contract where everybody knows the seller's going to pay or the buyer's going to pay or whatever. So we've got to open up those communications as a company, kind of talk to people, and then doubling down on open houses, make sure that y'all know, what's that?
Ed was asking where the commissions were. They removed them all yesterday.
Oh yeah, there's no more commissions in the MLS. I said that earlier. So, so we've got a lot of stuff to do as a brokerage. We're going to try to make sure we've got more information for you guys. I wish we had it, I wish we had 60 days notice of, hey, what the changes are, but what was written 60 days ago have changed. And we had state documents that were like, no, we're not putting those out because we didn't have to use them. We don't have to use these until the 17th. And
so Randy, all of my buyers that I have now that have buyer agreements, I have to put them all on the new one by the 17th?
I haven't read anything that said no, or even your sellers or anything else. Linda, the question was any buyers that we have already? And I will say yes, on the buyers, because if they haven't found a house, you need to go back and read. Okay.
It's a continuation, but I haven't signed up till like December.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to go back at this point if you have a buyer. And I think if you have a listing, but if you've got a contract in the works and it's going to close here, I don't think, from what I've read, you don't have to go back and redo all documents and stuff. But if you've got an active listing, then we need to replace the listing with this one, explaining to them all this. And existing buyers, you need to redo their agency agreement.
So I need to redo the buyer's agreement?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, they need to know because everything changes after the 17th. And so, anyway.
Then once you get a contract to purchase, you got to add, the addendum that says that the seller agrees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, it's off the table. You know, you don't know what the commission, unless you're already working and it's all worked out. But as a listing agent, make sure you just go, you know, make it known, advertise, you know, on a house, hey, we'll pay 2.5%, 3%. Which I don't get. If you can advertise it on social media, why can't you put it in the MLS? But the Department of Justice says that it's like, you know what somebody's hand is and cards next to you, and you start telling everybody, you're giving away information that you shouldn't. But I'm like, hey, we've always operated that way. But, you know, we can sit here and cry and whine or whatever and think, hey, it's more paperwork, it's change. It's really not. We're going to keep on doing what we're supposed to do, providing services to buyers and sellers, making sure they get the most money. Our job is to adapt to the documentation and paperwork. Anybody in this room or on this think, hey, it's fixing to ruin me or shut me down? If you think that, I'm like, no, you're not. It's not going to. It's very simple stuff that I don't think causes enough heartache to anybody to justify getting out of this business. You know, I think it's time to buckle down and trying to open up this to see everybody's.
They took the fun out of it.
Took the fun out of it, so.
Because now when I'm doing searches, I can't go straight to the commission and see what they think.
Yeah, I was searching yesterday on some markets and I came across one that was offering 5% to the buyer. I'm like, dang, that's the one we're gonna find somebody that wants that house. And so, but there was a problem with it. And so, Chris and I was looking at a couple of markets, and it's funny, in these markets we'd find the pictures of the inside of the houses and they're just beautiful. And I looked, I said, that's an ugly house.
Yeah.
And so we strove through and you know, when the picture of the front of the house is on the last page, you know, it's like, oh my God, man, that's, you know, that's ugly. And so, and every one of them we looked at was an ugly house, man. They were gorgeous on the inside. I'm like, spend some, you know, who wants to pull up to this ugly thing every day? And so, anyways, CEs, next Wednesday, yeah, the 22nd, we're offering CEs from 9 till 12. It's going to be fair risk management. The main one's going to be here. It's free. Need everybody to sign up, send Chris or Penny something saying, hey, we're going to be there. It's going to be here, and I think we're going to offer it if you're in Orange Beach or Huntsville. We're going to offer it
Don't have that link
Zoom.
yet. We'll send that link out.
Yeah, we'll have hot dogs, I guess. So, and if the house shows up good, we're going to have shots, Jello shots, and so anyway, yeah, we will have some food here. So and that is sponsored by Certainty Mortgage. My son Chase has sponsored it, and he'll bring some food and stuff. So and also this training was provided by High Point Title, so we appreciate business from there. Linda, you got any closing moments, or you still there?
Well, yeah, I'm here. The only thing I want to caution everybody, I don't want to scare anybody, but to caution everybody that the DOJ may have some shoppers out there. So make sure you do the paperwork.
Yeah. Hey, and that's what Linda just said, everybody in the room, is I promise you, and I got a call the other day and it was just real sketchy. You know, somebody asking questions and I'm just like, be careful, because DOJ is going to have people, they want to bust us for some reason. And I'm like, okay, politicians go from a 20,000 network to $2.5 million over, you know, they moved to Washington, D.C. Investigate those people, but they're on us on the commissions we get. So I promise you, they're going to send people in and say, hey, just show me the house. I don't want to sign that. And so they're going to be out here. So if you want to get busted by the DOJ, don't do your work. And if we find that, you know, our hand as a brokerage is, if you don't want to do what the new documents are, you can go find somewhere else to sell. But if you want to do it the way it's supposed to be, we're going to help you and be here. Let's just do it the right way that we've not had any issues with you guys. Y'all do a great job and make us look good. And so just keep on doing it, but don't ever hesitate to call us and, you know, see what we can do to help. And so, anything else, Linda, or anybody out there?
So Randy, you're saying since I have my own listing, I'm gonna have to redo my paperwork.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought.
Linda, on the listing agreement, can we just do like an addendum, or do we need to go back and change?
You
all
know,
of-
it's really not that big a deal to just do the listing agreement. It's not a huge document. I think it would just be better to do the whole thing.
So on your own deal, you gonna pay me a commission if I bring it back?
Who you
They
talking?
pay your commission?
Yeah, hey, almost, yeah, you gonna pay me 10% to sell your house? So,
Yeah.
so anyway. But yeah, everything's
Don't
gonna,
bring me a low baller though. Don't bring me a low baller.
I won't. So anyway. All right, any other questions? While we're talking, Chris is over here holding his own. Hey, anybody want to share? I've got a whole group here watching, listening, and they're just talking, being rude here. Hey, I appreciate every one of you guys. I hope y'all learned something from this. And I hope you can relax through this, that it's not, and you know, it's not a destruction of our industry. It's just, as I said 2 months ago, there's a couple of more addendums to sign and put in the file. And what I do like about it, I said earlier, is it makes us do our job correctly and not just wing it and go. So without that, I'll let everybody go, and we will. I'm planning on next Wednesday another training in here. May have somebody in here going over things and some of the things other we need to do that helps you. But in between, if y'all have any questions, y'all feel free to give us a call.
Thank you, Randy.
On and on.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you,
Thank
Randy.
you.
Thank you.
Hey, tell your husband.
See you later.
Thank you.
Got a
Good
call
to see
on,
you.
I got- somebody want
Good
to
to
look at one
see
of my
you.
listings, so I'm like, I
Well,
need to take a transaction broker document with me. If it's my listing, do I have to get them to sign anything? If it's my listing?
No, if they're coming to see it without an agent, you don't have to, but I would carry one with me, because if they're interested, you can sit there and say, hey, this is new protocol.
Okay.
Because if they're coming, they shouldn't have an agent with
No, I
them.
asked the guy, this person, I was like, are you working with an agent? He said no.
I would take a transaction, but it's kind of like an open house. You can't assume that they're going to be your person, and so you can just explain to them, hey, this is how we do it. So, thanks.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, good seeing you.
So Randy,
Yes, ma'am.
would you suggest, when you deal with a new client, would you suggest they talk to them to get pre-approved first, and then we can have our buyer consultation?
Yeah. I mean, how do you know what to sell them when they come in? And
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, I had a guy the other day, saw one of my ads on Facebook and called, said, man, you know, I love it. Everything looks good. And I asked him a few questions. He's a first time home buyer. He's young. And I'm like, no, this is a $450,000 house. So before I meet you or talk to you, let's go get pre-approved. And, cause I could go show it and he loves it. And then, hey, now I got to go find him. So I don't want to waste his time or mine. Yeah. And so, and that's an easy call. Just sit there and say, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. And so, you know, and to me, that's part of what we offer.
So Randy, so basically the broker compensation agreement takes
Now, that is
place
not
then,
something.
and then.
Right. Because Genesis is.
Like, you know how, like, when I be selling outside of,
Have a
like,
standalone.
Yeah.
I do like an addendum.
Yeah.
Selling
Sure,
something.
yeah, BMW.
Yeah.
So that broker
That replaces it. It should be in everything that you do. Every deal that you do, you need to put that in. That is where y'all agree. If you don't have it and they don't pay you, there's no verbal agreements and, you know,
So
in
this
all
can
of
be
this.
submitted with the sales contract?
Yes. Whenever you send it in, you send it and then at that point, you know, because as a listing agent, we've got to make sure we've got documents in that says we can pay you 2.5%, or if I don't, then I've got to pay you my 2.5% or 3%. So if I sign that with you and then I don't get it back or don't have my agreement, and so you know, really through this, to me, one of the easiest answers to it all is we ought to be doing, which this takes place, but I'm like, hey, it ought to be just a referral fee. You know, we're gonna come in there, if we buy it, you pay me a referral fee, because the complication of this is at closing, on the closing statement, it says the seller's paying Avast Realty and EXP Realty. And so, and they sit there at closing and say, well, I'm not supposed to pay EXP. So they should just pay the listing agent, and then the listing agent pays a referral fee. That cleans it all up. But with all these new documents and the seller signs and says, okay, I'm good with you paying them out of this. So to me, it's something, and to a lot of people, it's something that was really complicated, but the legal aspects of it was big enough that, hey, just settle. And I didn't say, I think I read where the attorneys in this are, I think the attorney fees in this lawsuit are like $369 million is what the attorneys receive. The average client in this gets like a $69 settlement fee. So the people that supposedly got injured are making $70, and the lawyers are making 300 million plus. And so, you know, it just shows you it's just lawyers. And so, you know, I don't have to have them somewhere in life. Huh?
You talking to them on?
I'm talking to them.
I ran them out of here.
All right. Well, man, it's good to see you. I hadn't seen you in a while.
Everybody's freaking out, but no, this is, it's simple.
It is. It really is. Just the closing. And look, and I'm like, you know, and if you do the right job with your listing agreement, you're going to want. And so